All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Content Matters podcast. I have a great guest today, Kristin Hege. She's the CEO and founder of Convey Communications, and that's a strategic consulting firm located in apparently very hot Phoenix, Arizona. She's had her company for over 10 years, but she was doing PR and public relations long before that. So we're going to have a really great conversation today on the public relations industry. And I think we're going to really pick her brain. And if you're in marketing or public relations, which are kind of the same thing in some cases, you're going to learn lots of stuff today. So thanks for joining us, Kristin. Did I say your last name right?
You say it how the majority of people say it, but it's actually Hege. So I'm used to it.
Oh, really?
It's fine. Yeah, who
That's
thought
cool.
like such a short name would be so hard to say, but it is what happens.
Yeah, see, there's what I get for not asking you beforehand. Usually I'm smart and I ask, and I didn't ask you this time.
That's okay. Don't worry about
All
it.
right.
It happens.
Okay, so first question for you. You actually were at one time a VP of marketing. What made you switch to public relations?
It's actually what I went to school for, was marketing. Fun fact, it was for a medical device company, and we hired a PR firm, and the person that was running the account at the time was leaving to start her own PR agency, and she said, "You should be doing PR, not marketing." And I was like, really? And so we had a conversation. Yeah, we had a conversation about it. And where I was, like, funding was up and down, and that kind of story that seems to resurface every now and then, which most people are going through right now. So the timing was right, and that's how I got into PR, was getting poached from a PR agency.
Well, it's kind of interesting. So then tell me from your perspective, because that was quite a while ago, from your LinkedIn profile, what's kind of changed with public relations over the years? What's kind of the key things that have changed today that people should be aware of?
I think, a lot of people would say this about marketing roles too, but it's getting harder because newsrooms are shrinking. And so, you see all over the news just the different media publications and media companies that are laying off. And so these reporters they're having to cover more things, but they're only one person in the amount of content they're having to push out. So where we used to be able to pitch an outlet that had 7 reporters covering tech, say that's the case. Now it's down to 2. That doesn't mean there's any less people pitching them. So I think that really the importance of a really great story and the right pitch and the right research of who you're reaching out to is more prevalent now than ever, because they're just bombarded all day long with those pitches. So I think that's definitely changed. The landscape of contributed content, that third party, the CEO is going to write the article instead of the journalist, that we're just finding 50% of the time in a lot of the trade publications, the real niche audience ones, the reporters are coming back and saying, "We don't have time to write this. Do you want to write it?" And so, I mean, yes, but still, it's nice to also not have to write it to get that third party validation, but that is changing like crazy right now.
Yeah, it's interesting. Most companies will take, or media companies do take, contributed, and they market as contributed, obviously, just to show that. But actually, I work for Diginomca, and they don't take contributed articles at all unless they have a partnership with the company through a media partnership. So it's kind of interesting to see how it's different sometimes across the media landscape.
Yeah, I mean, right now you can do it with Inc., Forbes, Fast Company, Newsweek. I mean, you can pay, and it's fairly reasonable to pay for the year to have that membership and post. So we have a lot of clients doing that. I think there was 10 years ago, 15 years ago, we would have gasped to ask the client to pay for that, because you don't do that. But it's part of it now.
Yeah. So when you approach a media strategy with a company, how do you kind of get started? What are the things that they need to kind of understand to get started?
We are, we have this great little niche in MarTech. We have a lot of MarTech clients. So for years, I've learned all about the funnel, right? How marketers market and how people buy. And so that's kind of really helped our media strategy. It sounds silly, but it's really helped us have a better focus on who the buyer is, and just, in B2B, the buying group, right? That all of the people, the buyer's journey, and there should be PR intersection within each of those space, each one of those steps. And so we really go in and just say, how does your customer buy? Who is your ideal customer, first of all, and how do they buy and who influences them? And it really resonates well with marketers because then they can go, okay, I understand where this is all going. Sometimes PR people will come in and, they're doing it, I'm not saying they're doing it wrong, but they'll just say, okay, this is where we're going to put it out. And so many people sit back and go, well, who's going to read that? Why do we do that? And they may very well be doing it right, but we approach it from a funnel perspective so that everybody's aligned and in agreement with where that goes. And because of that, we find that we learn so much more, whether it's customer stuff or case studies or just sales objections anyway, like why aren't, why didn't you win that deal? What kind of content can we put out, opposite of that? So I think that's always our first approach is how do you sell and who buys?
Yeah. Do you think the strategy is different if like you do a lot of tech companies? Do you think the strategy is different for different industries, or is it still kind of the same thing?
I think it's the same thing. If you don't understand who's actually gonna write the check, give the card, show up to the event, whatever, and how they got there, then you're just not working as efficient. B2C is a little different, right? But from a B2B perspective, it's about building relationships and influencing purchases, right? So how can PR help supercharge those efforts anyway?
Like one of my questions, I was just curious, how important is the press release today in public relations?
Everybody asks that question. I think, well, first of all, for startups and early stage companies, there's a place for it because it's line in the sand type stuff.
Yeah.
If you're getting vetted, whether it's from an investor or a customer or someone's trying to figure you out, they have to know you're doing things, right? Does every press release need to go on the wire? No. But when you're doing things like share a voice and a lot of people follow the same channels. Who are your customers following? Are they following your competition too? And there's something to be said there about announcements and moving and shaking and all of those things that you can put in a press release. So it does have a play for that. Do I think, does it always result in media coverage? No. Does it ever? Maybe, but really it should be the one-to-one pitching from your PR person. So we do a mixture of both. Some of the releases don't go on the wire and most of them sit on the website, but you got to show that you're doing and innovating and putting things out there. So that's kind of how we approach it.
Yeah, that's a good way. That's a good way to think about it. Like that. One of the other things that I thought you said was interesting was that PR should own G2. Why do you think that's the case?
That's a bold statement, right? So I don't, is not as much as, oh yes, okay. So I like to own it mainly because there's so many deadlines around it. And in growth stage companies, they're busy doing product stuff. I mean, and customer, all of the things that sometimes the deadlines come up on us real fast, and then you have to get the reviews and you have to do that as far as making lists, right, in G2. But there are things that PR people, because we can get scrappy with a quote, we can get scrappy with something like that as far as getting coverage for it. So if we're in the know and we're seeing what's coming in, we're actually getting a little bit more visibility into the customer that we don't always get to have until someone hands us a case study. Some of our clients are really great about it, where we talk to customers all the time. Sometimes there's kind of a thick wall there that we can't get to them. And then when we're in G2, people are telling stories and giving reviews on certain instances and certain things. I mean, if onboarding is awesome, then we can do something with that. We can talk about that from a content or a PR perspective. And so that's why I like owning G2. It's like this total selfish reason because it gives us insight, but it also helps keep our clients like accountable to dates and times. And this is what's happening because they have a whole schedule, right? They have a whole release schedule and things. So I like it from that perspective, and it is reputation management. I mean, I get it as reviews, but it's also reputation management too. And
Absolutely.
So if we don't own it, we sure as heck need to be in there and paying attention to it. So if we don't, I have some clients we don't own it, but we have access to it. So we can get in there and see what's happening, not just a public facing side.
Do you also do you have with your clients a relationship with sales? Because I would think there's lots of stuff there coming in from prospective clients and new customers that would give you really great idea and information other than saying, a release or something that says you have a new client, but giving you good ideas for what to write about or to kind of talk about with media companies.
Yeah. So one of my favorite things to do is ask where the sales objections are. I think I mentioned that earlier. What is happening, and can we fix it with content? I mean, how did those people get in the funnel in the first place? Was it just that they lost because of competition? Maybe, but are they getting the wrong people in? And so what can we be helping from a messaging perspective of getting
Yeah.
out there? But I also love to ask, sit with sales and say, what are the top 5 questions you're getting asked all the time? Because we can put that out there and get those answered early. I've even had clients go as far as just sending us gong calls. Hey, this was a great sales call. You should listen to it. Hey, this was a great idea. This is a great conversation about the problem we're trying to solve. Listen to it. So the more interjected within departments your PR team is, the more informed and better pitching and all of the things that can happen, as opposed to just a vendor relationship.
Yeah.
That's kind of how we approach it.
Do you think that public relations, is there really a difference between if you do public relations internally as opposed to getting an agency to do it? Like, are there more benefits to having an outside company work on it?
Well, the sheer number of people, first of all, you
Yeah.
have your internal person and then you have a team at an agency. But working with an agency, selfishly, I'll say it's important to have one that has a niche. We're B2B tech, so we know where that reporter used to be and who they wrote for and all of those things. So we have a lot of the media relationships. I was on a call the other day, though, with CEO was like, how is your email and more important than mine? It's actually not. I wish I could say it was. If the CEO does it well and he sends it, it's going to be awesome, right? The reporter is going to like it, but who has time and should he be doing that is the main question. And the internal people a lot of times get bogged down with internal comms and a lot of stuff that happens internally that they don't have as much time to take the campaigns that an agency would traditionally be managing.
Yeah. Okay. What made you decide to start your own agency? Because you worked with a couple of bigger PR
Mm-hmm.
firms prior to going on your own, but what made you decide to make the jump?
I knew I was really great with client relations. That's my favorite part, is to, working with the clients and building relationships and strategy. I don't like some of it, right? I write all day, but I don't love writing different things. And I just knew that I could streamline it and do it a little bit different, because everything that I worked with before was such a great experience, but it was very like, this is how PR does it. And this is what agency does. And this is how you bill. And this is what you do. And I'm like, I don't want to track hours. I don't want to do all of these things, but I know I can do this. So yeah, I just wanted to do it differently. I wanted, I was having my second child. I wanted a little bit more freedom over my schedule, that every entrepreneur story there, but
Yeah.
I just knew I could do it a little bit differently. So that's why. And I do, our scopes of work, we do them by quarter. I don't track hours. I track results. And so, it's different.
No, but I actually like that. Like, I think this whole idea of tracking hours for anything doesn't, well, if not for anything, but for a lot of stuff doesn't make sense, because if you're really good at your job, you may do something 10 times faster than someone else.
Yeah.
Does that mean that your time is worth the same? No, I think it's worth, it's worth
Mm-hmm.
more than that, because you've built up that experience to do things that well, right?
Yeah, and the relationships too. If you can call, if we can call on a reporter that we think is really going to like it because we've worked with that person before, it's not going to take 15 emails or calls and a LinkedIn message, right? So you're absolutely right. I would get paid a lot less if if it was by the hour for some of those things, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about PR in school, how it's taught in school.
Mm,
What is it more like a journalism degree? Like, how is it taught today? And you are an adjunct professor at the Arizona State University, right? So tell me about
yeah,
what
yeah.
you're teaching there as well.
Yeah, I'm not teaching this semester. I took a semester off, but I teach PR writing there. And I didn't go to school for PR, so this was like an eye-opening thing. But I had pinch hit for a different person that was teaching once. I was like, I love this. I could do this. And then I was blessed to get the opportunity. But um, I just have hired enough interns and entry level people to realize that they do think like journalists more than PR. And I
Yeah.
think of journalists, PR people like journalists with like sales with a little bit of sales in them, a little bit of marketing. And so it's taught a little bit different. I mean, it's ethics are taught and all of the rules, right? But very rarely do they get to it. Like at Cronkite at ASU, they have a PR lab, which is cool. They get actual clients, but that's not until their last year. So really it's in up until, and I had a niece that went to school for it too, up until the very end, they don't have that real world experience or really what it looks like beyond like Sex in the City video, shows and movies,
Yeah.
which is absolutely not that. So I love to go in and teach it almost like they get a new client each time. So it's a writing class, but they have a client and they do all the things that you would normally write for, and it doesn't always go over well. With some of the assignments, like, what is this? I'm like, yes, you have to write bios all the time. This is, let's do this. And so, taking it, I enjoy showing them a little piece of, and hoping that when they get their internship, somebody somewhere is quietly thanking me into the stars because they got trained for it.
Yeah. Do you think generative AI is going to impact that element of public relations?
Yeah, I think I'm not scared of it, right? And there's a lot of people that are, taking over the job. You have to be unique, right? You're literally asking it to write something that everybody else has already written. So our job as PR people in general is to come up with something unique and different. I think it can make us more efficient. Um, the other day I was writing a podcast description and I wanted to see what it could do. So I put the transcript from the podcast and said, write me a summary of this podcast with 3 takeaways. It did it awesome. That's not why our clients are hiring us to write the best podcast description. So, it just gives us more time to go do other things.
Yeah.
So I think it will change. Do I think that maybe it can change not creating some good writers out of school? If they're not actually writing and learning the art of it as much, then that's going to fail them down the road. But that's to be seen, I guess.
Yeah. I think that's a challenge for all kids going to school and having
Mm-hmm.
to write. And I have a son who likes to use the tools, and I'm like, you
Yeah.
kind of have to learn to do that yourself first, then you
Yeah.
can use the tools.
Because you never know if it's bad. How are you going to fix it?
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Worked with a lot of clients. So what are some of the biggest mistakes that you've kind of seen that clients ask for or want to do and that you didn't agree with?
I think the hardest thing is being able to tell them that no one's going to care about that piece of news, and that it may be fantastic internally and it's great for the industry, but as we said at the top of the hour, like the journalists, they're busy, right? So if this isn't, if it's not out of beta yet, probably not going to get that much coverage, right? Because they want to talk to a customer. Or if there's a lot of times where it's not as competitive as they think it is, so not really having a relationship of that person that can tell you the truth. I've never been a yes PR person because I like the results, right? I want to win too.
Yeah.
I want them to be successful. So having those harder conversations, and I think early on, it's real easy to surround yourself with people that are, drinking the company Kool-Aid because it may be great, but you have to have that voice of reason on the outside of like, why would this get coverage? Why does that person care? And those are really hard conversations to have. So I think those are some mistakes, that not actually looking at this piece of news or what you want coverage for as what it is. And not being able, and when we don't have access to the rest of the company, meaning like we can't talk to a sales guy, or if we can't get on the phone with a product person internally, then we then can't help you kick up what that story is, So if you keep us at arm's length, you'll get surface level coverage because we don't know what else to pitch because you're not telling us. So that's kind of how it works. And not everybody's good at telling it us. That's what we're there for. So the more calls, the more gong calls we can listen to, that kind of stuff, the more scrappy we can get, the more informed we are and the better chances of coverage is.
Yeah. When you kind of price your models in, like, is there a performance aspect to pricing public relations, or do they expect you to have so many articles about them out on media sites? Like, how do you do that? How does that work?
Yeah, they do. And I think it's good old benchmarking data of your own agency. We've been around long enough that I think I can pretty much know, based on what their product roadmap looks like on the tech side. I mean, speaking all tech, what their roadmap looks like, that my team, we can make some good predictions. From a contributed content and getting stuff placed, because that's gotten so much more popular. That's a lot easier if you know where to go. So if you have a team that can churn out content and do it well, those numbers are a little bit higher than the original ones. And then because we do have a niche in tech, we do know the reporters and what they care about. So we can predict it. So our scopes of work are by quarter, by placement. It's not performance, because sometimes that product, it's not our fault the product didn't launch that quarter when it was supposed to.
Yeah.
But what we do, because it is valuable money, every dollar matters, we'll fill it in and say, what can we write you a blog post? Can we do some more podcasting? What can we do to add value? We like to stay agile with the client as much as possible.
So, okay, so you're saying you do a lot of that content development. Does that
Mm-hmm.
mean that you're kind of potentially under threat from creators or influencers? Because lots of brands are being told that that's where you need to go today to get people to see you and hear you and know who you are, to work with influencers.
I think it's a compliment to it, right? So we love that if you're going to go work for an influencer and get it out there, that's a different message. We're part of that foundational rock of, this is, our messaging, this is who we are, this is our value proposition, this is the news. But if you have a great influence out there, a creator that's doing amazing things and getting you out there to their own audiences, heck yeah, that's awesome. But that too will get old. And when that gets old, you still have all of your regular engines running smoothly. So I'm not threatened by that. We're not necessarily threatened by that.
Yeah. Does PR sometimes own that as well, like working with the
It depends.
influencers? Yeah.
It depends. Most of the time it's marketing, but they'll have us do the job of finding the influencer and vetting them and making sure it's legit, and making that recommendation and even getting the pricing a little bit. But then once it comes to working, most of that falls under the marketing team.
Yeah. All right. That makes sense. All right. Is there a difference in marketing from a B2B perspective to a B2C, like not marketing, from a public relations perspective? Is there a difference?
Oh, I think there's a huge difference. I think B2C, I've maybe had one or two of those in my day, but not a ton. I like B2B if you think about it, from the case study, the problem solving. I mean, going out there and really making someone the hero of their org because they mastered this tech, right? I love that story. And I think journalists like that too. I think B2C is great. It's emotional. They're great at brand awareness, right? Everybody loves it. And my son, I was at the doctor the other day, or a podiatrist, and he's like, I only wear Nike shoes. I was like, who are you? No, that's not true. But that is, that is your brand. That's awesome,
Yeah.
But from a B2B perspective, if they have that brand loyalty, it's because it works. You can have all the great brand story in the world, but if people are saying it like my son did about his shoes, it's because they've transformed their role, in their business position. So I think that's really cool. It's longer lead cycles, obviously the buying cycle is really long. So really nurturing them along the way is way different than B2C.
Yeah, I can see that, definitely. And you work with some really great B2B tech companies. I'm always like, I don't know if I can say them or not, but like
That's fine.
demand-based,
Yeah.
Terminus, those are like GTM Partners is a new one for you,
Mm-hmm.
right? Those are great companies, like really great products, really great content marketing, and stories
Mm-hmm.
behind them that would be fun to work with.
Yeah, it's really fun to be in this room with all of these smart people and watching. It's motivating, just to see what they're doing in their industries and how they're going about it. I love it. I don't think I could ever not do tech for that reason.
So speaking of tech, what about public relations technology? How is that kind of work? Because that's actually changing quite a bit. I've actually had some pitches from PR technology companies that are doing some very interesting things with their technology.
Yeah, I have a love-hate relationship with it. I think that I would always want to know what the journalists think of it more than the PR person. Um, because reach is reach. I mean, I could mass pitch anybody if I wanted to. We'll never do it, but that's what some of these are wanting them to do. And I have, we have subscriptions to so many of them, and they have their value, but I've yet to find one that the data is like legit always right.
Right.
And that's hard because journalists move. But it annoys me when I put in like a topic, and an author or journalist will pop up a name and it will be one of my clients because they wrote an article on it. It's like something's missing here. And so then I'm still going out and having to, do the hard work of it. But from a reporting standpoint and all of those things, some of that is really good. But the nothing's going to be better than building one-to-one relationships with the journalist.
Yeah.
And it's hard, so that sucks. But nothing's going to work as good as that.
Any advice for doing kind of pitches to journalists the right way, like for all the PR people out here that are listening to us?
I always just read. Just because they wrote something on retail one week doesn't mean they cover retail. They could have been covering it, for someone on vacation. And I think that's the hardest part. I think that in a perfect world, a journalist would respond an email when we say, hey, we've seen you cover these 15 things. Where is your niche? Where would you like to be pitched? They don't always return those.
Yeah.
I think if there was a little bit more mutual work on that side, some of them do, they'd get better pitches. But I think, it there's a lot of bad pitching out there where just because it says tech next to the reporter that they cover tech, they cover handheld tech and like machinery or something, and they don't even do the work to see what it is. So really understand their beat, understand who they cover, the type of articles that they write. It's hard. It takes practice, and it takes just that's why the relationship is so important. If you pitch them all the time and they never respond, and it's good and it's right, send them a message and say, what am I doing wrong? What are you looking for? And hopefully they respond.
Yeah, that's I like that. I definitely get a lot of pitches working for Diginomica that I know are
Mm-hmm.
canned. And I worked with this one girl once who said she got this pitch and she said she thought it was personal to her and she responded back. What she didn't realize was that like 20 or 30 other people also got the exact same pitch.
Yeah.
She said, it's weird. You think you're responding to a personalized email. And it's like, no, you're not. You're not.
Mm-hmm.
I can usually tell when it's someone sending me something one-to-one as opposed to getting on that list of, and I don't, if I want to do it, I'll answer. But if I don't want to do it, I don't
Yeah.
answer back very often anymore because it's like, I know it's
Mm-hmm.
just an automated email coming at me.
Yeah, it's not, you guys are smart. You can figure it out. That's why you have to do the work. And I think most journalists appreciate the work that you put in, even if it's wrong. I'll sometimes be like, that's really not quite the fit, but I appreciate you bringing it to me. This is really what I'm looking for. That works, because then everything's updated. And that's what I have yet to see any type of technology be able to account for,
Yeah.
which, it's hard.
Yeah. How do you see public relations changing very much in the near future? What do you see kind of on the horizon for new things that you might be able to do or that you want to try?
Yeah, I love research. I secretly want to be an analyst, I think. And so I like research too because the media likes it as well. It plays well. It's informed. People like data. So I think the more that me personally, we're going to start getting into more research and helping clients get that research out the door because it really is generating your own news and it's valuable news. So that's that. I do think it will continue as the content marketing lines continue to blur. I think it's forcing PR to think differently. Maybe, the B2Cs, that's not even something they generally do as often. I mean, op-eds and all of those things that works and they do that, but from like a contributed content standpoint, that's usually a B2B play. So I think it's forcing some people with the content changing out there to do more with content and to be more creative. Because again, you can just be chat GPT now, I guess, right? So everybody wants to be a thought leader, but you have to have thoughts.
Yeah. And ChatGPT will give you thoughts, but they won't always be the right thoughts.
Right. And they won't be yours.
Definitely. Okay, last question for you. It is almost July 4th, coming up on the US holiday. What is the craziest thing you've ever done on July 4th?
Oh gosh. That's a secret question, huh?
Yeah.
I'm kind of like, I'm boring. So for the last, let's see, I've been married almost 20 years. So the last 22 years, I've been in the same place for 4th of July, which is in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, which is where I am right now because the pier does that. So the craziest thing I think is during COVID, no one wanted to do, they weren't allowed to do fireworks because, all the people. And in Carolina, you can buy fireworks that no one should be allowed to purchase as an individual person.
Right.
And we didn't purchase them, but we went out on the beach when all of the crazy people that did, and it was actually pretty cool. But we were a little too close than we should have been. But I would say, as vanilla as that sounds, was probably going in and trusting about 100 plus vacation and Southerners putting off their own fireworks and sitting in the middle of it. So, of that I can remember and share publicly on social media, that's probably the craziest thing I've done in a while.
I don't know. That's a pretty good one. I can tell you from experience, when they go the wrong way, you definitely don't want to be in
Hmm.
their direction.
Yeah, yeah. And in the middle of it, I was like, I don't know if this was a good idea. You're looking around and it's cool, but then, yeah,
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, Kristen. This has been a great conversation. I appreciate it.
yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, great. And I just want to say thank you, everyone, for listening. And thank you to Ingenix, who is the sponsor of the Content Matters podcast. Genix is a leading player in the field of content management and customer experience for well over 20 years. Great solutions for websites, customer support portals, customer portals, documentation portals, all kinds of stuff like that. So I encourage you to check them out at ingenix.com. And with that, I'm going to close it off and say have a great day, everyone.